Umamusume franchise has expanded far beyond what anyone initially expected. What began as a quirky idea has evolved into a collection of stories that now stretch across games, anime, live events, and of course, manga. With so many spin-offs floating around, I started to wonder whether any of them are actually worth reading, or if they're just brand extensions for the sake of existing. And so today, I read every Umamusume spin-off manga to see if any of them are any good. The huge success of the Cinderella Gray anime isn't a secret to anybody. And a lot of you might already know this, but the Cinderella Gray anime is actually an adaptation of a spin-off manga with the same name. I'm currently watching the anime as it's still coming out weekly. So while I'm waiting, I wanted to look at other Umamusume manga to see if any of them are as good as Cinderella Gray. I'm gonna skip talking about Cinderella Gray, as literally everybody knows about it, and I definitely don't want to give out manga spoilers on an anime that's still airing. So I'll be giving my personal thoughts and give each of them a rating on whether you guys should read it or not. So enough yapping from me, and let's get into it. First up on the list is a spin-off manga of our favorite, lovable, kind, and what the fuck, what does she look like that? Okay, so basically, Haru Urara Ganbaru is a spin-off manga that is based off Haru Urara's actual real-life personality. Yes, I'm talking about the actual horse here. The story of this manga revolves around Urara's career and her relationship with her trainer and stable hand, who Urara calls Oni-chan. Okay, let me address the elephant in the room here. This manga is very different than any other Umamusume media there is. And I think Cygames, or their comic branch at least, haven't really found their main audience at this time. Because the art style and tone of this manga, let's just say that Blue Archive fans might like this more than I do. But putting the very suspicious art style and the fact that Urara really wants to marry her Oni-chan aside, it's fun to see that her core personality trait that made her so popular already showed up in this manga. She's hardworking, and of course, she never gives up. Even if she is very bratty in this manga. There's even a scene where her trainer and stable hand get really angry and protective, when this one guy recommended that Urara retires because she hasn't won a single race yet. It's nice to see the charms and core of what makes Haru Urara so lovable by fans already show up this early. Now, do I recommend you read it? Unless you're like a die-hard Haru Urara fan and want to consume any media that she shows up in, the answer is no. I mean, the manga is relatively short, but I can't really recommend this to any other Umamusume fan. Especially if you're a fan of the current Umamusume fandom and the type of content there is. Again, it's very different vibe if you know what I mean. Anyway, I give this manga like a 5 out of 10. Alright, so next up on the list is Umamusume Starting Gate. Okay, let's see here. What's in the first chapter? This seems familiar. Hey, isn't this just the first episode? Umamusume Starting Gate is a manga about horse girl racing, except they replaced the racing with kissing. While I did think this was just the manga version of the season 1 anime, I realized that it was only the beginning that was the same. Not long after the first chapter, the story takes a turn from the anime and changes its genre from sports manga to slice of life romance. There's more interactions between characters, and with that comes drama, comedy, and... Okay, so I was looking through my notes when I was reading this and I literally just typed Yuri. And well, yeah, that checks out. Umamusume Starting Gate features the characters from the season 1 anime, like the team's Pika members and the student council. The first arc of this manga revolves around Suzuka and Special Week, and while that's not really anything new, it's more refreshing that we get to see their interaction other than racing. One of the different scenes that I want to talk about is when Special Week pissed off Oguri Cap. Oguri then literally asked for a 1v1 after school. Feeling like Special Week's being threatened, Suzuka personally comes to Oguri Cap's room and apologizes to Oguri, secretly of course. I really like that the manga shows how much she cares about Special Week, and how much she is willing to help out her new friend. Even though it turns out that Oguri wasn't really threatening her and only wants to ask how Special Week was brave enough to eat that much rice in public. Yeah, in this manga, Oguri is really shy about her eating habits. Not that lasts long though. There's so many heartwarming scenes where you get to see Special Week and Suzuka get closer. And it gets showcased really well actually, with the help of the great art in this manga. There's so many panels that are drawn so well, with this one of Scarlet pouting being my favorite. Not biased. On top of that, while the main protagonist yet again gets the spotlight, this manga gives more love to the student council members and the dorm leaders. There's so many scenes where Airgroove, Hishi Amazon, Fuji Kiseki, and even Rudolph actually get involved in the character drama. And with those scenes, they get to show off their personality and chemistry. As a big fan of these characters, I would say that I am fed. Speaking of fed, the next arc in this manga focuses on Scarlet and Vodka, and thank God, because they got shafted in the anime and was forced to be supporting characters. I absolutely love this arc as a Vodka fan, but I'm not gonna go too deep into this because I have many more manga to talk about. Anyway, this manga is basically Umamusume if it was a high school rom-com manga from the 2010s. I highly recommend you read it if you're a fan of the character interactions and relationships of the Umamusume like I do. 8 out of 10. Now, for the three that I'm gonna mention next, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, not because they're bad or anything, but I just don't have much to say about them since they don't really have a continuous story and more of just collection of gags and scenes. Because the one that I really want to talk about is gonna take more time and I'll save it for the final part of the video. So, first up is UmaYon, a spin-off 4-panel gag manga with a cute chibi art style. Each of these scenes feature different Umamusume as the main focus. So, one chapter there's Special Week, the next features Maruzensky, and the next scene is— wait, why does Tazuna get her own chapter? Does this mean she's also an Umamusume? Anyway, if you recognize the art style, that's probably because this manga also had an anime adaptation. That's where the meme of Tokai Teo always looking at you comes from. I think this manga is pretty funny, but personally I would just watch the anime instead. Because while it's not a one-to-one adaptation, I do think that funny slice-of-life gags like these work better with great voice acting. 7 out of 10. Next is Umamusume Anthology Comic Star. If you don't know, an anthology is a collection of writing or stories put into one book. Out of all the manga that I've read, this one is the one that took me most by surprise. Because literally the first page, I was greeted by Skibidi Rudolph. Why did I write this? I think the highlight of this one is that every chapter is illustrated and written by a different person. So one chapter would have a more realistic art style, then the next one would have a very different and chibi-like art style. My personal favorite style would be this one chapter made by Sakeno Rarukan. I love the way they draw the Uma's facial expressions in this chapter. Highly recommend if you like to see your favorite Umamusume characters in different art styles. Another 7 out of 10. Last on the quick review list is Umamusumeshi. Now this one is actually the one that took me by surprise. And no, it's not because of a shit meme, I swear. But because how surprisingly heartwarming and well written it was. Umamusumeshi is also a spin-off manga filled with different stories in each chapter while also featuring food. What can I say, these girls like to eat. The main difference is that these chapters feature 2 Umamusume as the lead, only sometimes having more than 2. These pairings are mostly the pairs that you would expect, like Goldship and McQueen, Scarlet and Vodka, and many more. The 2 Umamusume bond over food, and while that doesn't sound the most interesting, these chapters don't just pick random ass food and make the Umas eat them. The food that are picked usually have some sort of connection to the characters, and are even the connecting bridge that make those 2 characters grow closer. One of my favorites is this chapter featuring the 3 sisters, Vivlos, Cheval Grand, and Versina. The food picked for this chapter is Hina Arare. And while I have no idea what the fuck that is, I absolutely love the reason for why this food was picked. It was because how it perfectly encapsulates their relationship as sisters. The colors are different, but it belongs in the Hina Arare all the same. Sisters, all the same. It's just really cute, and pair that with a good art style and you've already got me hooked. Another one that I want to talk about is a chapter featuring everyone's favorite dynamic duo, Goldship and McQueen. This chapter starts off with McQueen staring at the new dessert menu. Unfortunately, she has to hold herself back because she already ate. But don't worry because Goldship is here. Goldship, being the most logical and reasonable Uma there is, brings McQueen on a Sherlock Holmes-ass adventure trying to expose the darkness that lurks in the city. Just your average Goldship side plot. Turns out, the reason why Goldship took McQueen on a random adventure was so that she could lose a couple of calories. And because of that, McQueen could finally eat that dessert that she wanted. This might be one of the most underrated things about Goldship, and it's that she loves her friends. She shows her kindness and care in a very roundabout way, sure, but at the end of the day, all she wants to do is to help her friends. 8 out of 10, I am now very hungry. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. A common saying that you've heard a million times. But what does it really mean? Well, this is what the story of Star Blossom aims to explore. Umamusume Star Blossom is a spin-off manga focusing on the journey of Tsubaki Akeishi, a rookie trainer with high hopes who one day dreams of bringing a Japanese Umamusume to the...
Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe.
タミクス色彩となるテラス我これ30メーターだ先頭が我を行く者にあと200メーター先頭はオルヘーブルしかし外からもう一頭怖い
Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. But she still has a long way to go, as in the first chapter, she is shown to not even be a real trainer yet. And also she wets herself, so this is an amazing start. Accompanying her is the pure and hardworking Uma Sakura Laurel, who dreams of one day becoming Narita Bryan's rival, the evil and intimidating horse herself. Together, they join Team Alks, aka the Sakura cult, because like 90% of the team are just Sakuras. In here, we have Sakura Laurel, our main Uma, Sakura Bakushino, Sakura Chiyono, and my personal favorite, Yoshino Fail, as she fails to win a race in the literal first 3 pages of the first chapter. But for real though, she's really cool and might be my favorite Uma in this series. The premise of the spinoff is simple, but it's way more relatable. Its main theme of nothing ventured, nothing gained is shown heavily in the first 10 chapters. You can feel that the story is much more grounded and has a lot more emphasis on failure, but learning and gaining things from each loss. Sakura Laurel feels very different from the other spin-off protagonist, Oguri Cap. Very early on in Cinderella Gray, we basically know that Oguri Cap is extremely strong, with her being called a literal beast early in her career, while Sakura Laurel on the other hand fails to even win her debut race twice. Yeah, the race where, in the other series, it took like 1/10 of an episode or not even shown at all because it was that easy for them. And I know Oguri technically lost her debut race as well, but it was literally because she was wearing old shoes. But eventually, Sakura won on her 3rd try, and that's what makes this spin-off so much more satisfying. You can tell even though Tsubaki is very smart, having studied in Europe, she still doesn't have enough experience, showing that both the Uma and the trainer struggle, and being frustrated with each loss makes it so much more satisfying when they actually do win. It's good because it fits the narrative of the story. While the story begins with a cool quote and big idealistic dreams, it never fails to remind you that dreaming is the easy part. You can say all the cool stuff you want, but when it comes to the real deal, that's when you're going to struggle. The story doesn't show victory after victory just because the main characters have a dream they want to achieve. It's a great way to show the indomitable will both Tsubaki and Sakura have. One of the other focuses of Star Blossom is that it sets Narita Bryan as this quote-unquote antagonist. Now, she's not a villain by any means, even though she is fucking terrifying, but the story really aims to show the gap between Narita Bryan and the main cast. It doesn't just simply say she's strong and we're just supposed to believe it. It's shown by the interactions between the other characters, like the conversation between Biwa Hayahide and Simbali Rudolph the Emperor. You see, in every show or manga of Umamusume, Rudolph has always been this role model, someone to strive for and someone to finally surpass, and it's almost like she's on another level. And it's exactly why, when even the Emperor herself is terrified of Narita Bryan, that Bryan feels so much more intimidating. Now, there are multiple other side characters in this manga, and they are given a little more depth compared to when they appeared in the other anime. Like everyone's favorite Bakushin having a bit more backstory, which was adorable by the way, Hishi Amazon having more screen time and being able to show her cool older sister side. And there's even some new ones which I've never heard before, like Sugar Nation and holy shit, is that a JoJo character? This is Snow in Hazard. She is fucking massive and she has one of the best moments I've read in the manga so far. I'm gonna spoil the story a bit, but I really want to talk about one of the more emotional scenes in the manga. I like to believe this scene was why nothing ventured, nothing gained was the main focus of the story, and the root of Tsubaki and Sakura Laurel's growth. Allow me to set the scene. Tsubaki was busy planning Sakura's races to be able to compete in the Satsuki show. To enter the Satsuki show, Sakura needed to win 2 more races. So, Tsubaki focused her efforts on finding races that Sakura could win. That's when she found Sugar Nation training intensively, all because of her encounter with Sakura Laurel in her debut race. She realized that it was Sugar's loss against Laurel that changed her. Then she realized that she was looking at things all wrong. What Sakura Laurel needed wasn't a race where she could win, it was a race where she could grow. The race that they're participating in only has 7 racers. All because everybody wanted to avoid racing against Snow in Hazard. With Tsubaki knowing this, she says to Sakura plainly, even if you use 100% of your power, you can't win against her as you are now. Top 5 worst things to say to your trainee, probably, but that's not the point of this race. Sakura knew this, but wasn't discouraged, and this was the race that pushed Sakura to her limits. Also, I need to mention the incredible art in this chapter, by the way, because oh my god man, look at it! I thought this was the part of the story where, oh okay, so the main character challenges herself so that she could grow. So now she's gonna break her limits and win against the super OP Uma in the last second, right? No. She loses. And my favorite scene so far is this very simple scene of Sakura Laurel crying. Even though she knew she would lose, she still wanted to win so badly. And Tsubaki says to her, "You were the strongest Sakura Laurel I've ever known." Overall, from the chapters that I read, Star Blossom is a strong start to a manga with great characters and a story worth reading through. And hopefully it continues to do well in the future. 8.5 out of 10. Oh shit, I forgot about this one. Piece of Goldship is about Goldship committing war crimes at the age of 3.